Welcome to the Love in Progress podcast, where we deep dive into self-reflection and healing as a catalyst for better relationships and leadership. I am your host and educator, Neena, and I'm here to be a guide to you in that process. Let's get started. I'm incredibly excited to talk with you about differentiation, a principle that I learned from the very good Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife, one of my very favorite mentors when it comes to sexuality, relationships, individuality in relationships, and the interpretation of this principle and implementation of this principle in my life has been so impactful and so helpful that I thought this has to be an episode in and of itself. So differentiation, if you haven't explored this world before, is essentially the ability to hold down your own identity against the identity or actions of those that you're in a relationship with. Most often, we reference differentiation between partners in a romantic relationship, but you can absolutely do this between parent and child. Even me as a child to my parents, or in a professional relationship, a boss or a mentor to a mentee. All of this works in conjunction because you do have an interpersonal relationship with this person. And so being able to hold your identity against what it is that they do can be really challenging, especially if you are potentially raised in a religious structure where you consider yourself yoked to that partner, sealed to that partner, eternally bound, or married till death do you part. You definitely have a connection to what it is that they do, believe, act, how they talk, how they relate to other people, not just how they relate to you. And holding that space of differentiation can be very challenging, especially when you see that partner or that child act in a way that you yourself would not act. And that, my friends, is actually how you find that you're not properly differentiating. Let me outline this for you. Sorry, honey, I'm going to explain one of our qualms here. My amazing husband, Seth, and I have what I would consider a really great relationship. We're always growing, always wanting to learn how to be better partners to each other. And that work comes so individually to be able to make that relationship better. And one key aspect I realized, again, from the good doctor in a marriage retreat that we attended with her, was that I was really struggling with my differentiation from my husband. Again, partly because of the religious constructs with which we had joined together in an eternal union, but also probably because of some lack of sufficient self-confidence in the feedback loop I get from my husband, aka some inadvertent codependence. A feedback loop from him that gave me a sense of self. And I'm here to tell you that that is a road that will just lead to heartbreak, because you cannot control those people that you love, that you're in a relationship with. They will never be able to act in accordance to how you would, because they're working from their own lenses. They're working from their own filtration system, their own belief structures, their own physiological responses and perceptions. They never can be you because they aren't you. And I know that sounds primitive to say, but gosh, don't we put that pressure on the people that we're in committed relationships with, that they're going to show up in social situations or in ethical situations, moral situations, religious situations, even big decision-making, little decision-making situations as we would. And that's just junk. That is not true. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't do that. I'm going to call you out right now. I bet in some way, shape, or form, there's some element of you that can be better differentiated. Because if you have ever been in a social situation where your partner or your child acts out in a way that makes you feel embarrassed and you personally are like, want to crawl under a rock, then we are lacking some differentiation. Because what I will tell you is that when you are properly differentiated, it doesn't matter what they're doing. Maybe you'll have a conversation behind closed doors later, but it's certainly not a reflection of who you are, which is the problem when it comes to lack of differentiation. So going back to this story about my husband, bless his heart, he's a little bit sarcastic. I actually really think he's such a fun personality. But here's the truth. I would judge him unfairly in situations where he would be more sarcastic than I would be with a certain individual in a certain situation over a certain context of conversation. And I would get upset. I would get flushed. I would get angry. I may even like pull him aside, be like, hey, you can't say that. Or you can't say that in that way. And the reason it bothered me, this is the important part of differentiation, because you certainly can give counsel to the people you're in relationships with. That's fine. But you cannot expect them to be you. They are not a representative of you. You are the only representative of you. So ease up off of the people that you're in these relationships with. Ease up off of the idea that they have to be representing you, and that when they don't, you experience some sort of heartbreak or heightened emotional response. It's just not justified. So going back to why this is important. One, it's going to help with your relationships. Bless the hearts of the people we're in relationships with. We don't need to put that kind of undue pressure on other people to reflect how we would act in certain situations, because it's just not us acting in those situations. So we can ease up off of them. Two, it gives us an opportunity to ask ourselves, wow, why am I putting so much pressure on this person to act this way in this situation? Is it because I feel a lack of control around how these people are perceiving us as a couple? Do I feel that it's important for me to control other people's reactions to how me, my spouse, my children, my parents act because it's a reflection of me? Yeah, that's again another opportunity for us to self-reflect and to self-parent and to self-soothe in a way by saying, people will judge. They will. They're making those judgments based on their own filters. This is an opportunity for me to step into my power. What is it that I can control? How I talk to this person. Going back to the situation with my husband, am I going to be sarcastic? Probably not. That's not really my communication style in this moment. I can be soft without diminishing to my partner's personality or social choices. I can just be me and laugh off how he is being him in that moment. So it's a good opportunity for me to release control, release the need to control how other people perceive me or perceive the people that I love and care about. And then that third component I kind of alluded to already, which is just allowing the people in our spaces to be who they're going to be. When you're well differentiated, it actually doesn't matter how much they mess up, quote unquote, based on how you would act in a certain situation, because they're not you. So it releases the pressure around how they act in those situations. You can just come in and say, wow, that's really funny. They have a funny perspective in this situation. And it's interesting and curious for me to observe in this moment without judgment. Now, like I said before, there have been times when I had conversations later like, hey, maybe because of this person's background, they may not take that sarcasm as well as you anticipated. And how, here's my piece of advice. Take it or leave it. You get to choose what you want to do. That is certainly how the conversations go with my partner. With my children, it's a little bit more like social understanding, social teaching. If again, they were to act out in that way, maybe make a comment that could be taken offensively or in a hurtful way, I will give them some feedback privately. But again, it's so important for us to stand in our own sense of identity outside of how the people we love and care about that we're in relationships with act. Therein lies our power. Therein lies our control. And therein lies some peace and grace for the people that we're in relationships with, because they get to make choices based on their perceptions of the world. And we can stand outside of that and hold space and truth for our own stance, for our own actions. That's powerful. I hope that you got some value from that today. I'll see you on the next podcast. Don't forget to live well, look well, and be well, my friends. I'm rooting for you.